So, for our talk today, please join me in welcoming Dr. Avishkar Misra, a leading AI expert who has invented and launched AI solutions used by millions of people every day. And if you've ever shopped on Amazon, those recommendations that you get come to you courtesy of him. So, you know who to blame now. Dr. Misra is a former head of data science at TracFone Wireless, which is a Verizon company, and has led data science practice for the Americas at Teradata. His recommendation algorithm at Amazon has been hailed as once in a decade leap. He has also built Amazon Go and launched ML self service for Amazon advertising. He currently holds 10 patents and is the author of 13 research papers. Dr. Misra is a PhD in artificial intelligence from UNSW and is currently the CEO of Berrijam, where he's making AI simple, accessible, and affordable for everyone. Avi, it is my pleasure to have you here, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts on how exactly we can make better decisions using Berrijam.
Thank you, Jag, and thanks everyone joining. And it's a rainy, wet day outside, and hope you're comfortable and getting settled in. Feel free to type in questions in chat or put your hand up. Jag will monitor it and then tap me in as we go. So, everyone's heard of AI. There are massive numbers being thrown around. This is a 17 to 25 trillion dollars. I don't know if anyone's heard of this particular number. But this is the number that McKinsey and Company estimates is the potential impact on the global economy of AI technologies. It's a massive number. It really is a massive transformational, revolutionary thing that we're sort of about to go through. It is no less transformative than the impact of electricity, the impact of cars on society has been. So this is really at the early nascent stages of AI having a huge, massive impact on the way we live, the way we operate. A lot of it is actually already in place, right? In fact, a lot of organizations around the world already use AI technologies and techniques to make better decisions, smarter decisions faster than most of us really are not aware of it. In fact, the AI revolution really is in the hands of very, very few organizations. It's a sort of like, imagine inventing the car and then saying only 0.001% of the people in the world can drive one. And that sadly is the reality that we currently exist in, because the tools, the capabilities, the solutions are really not designed to make AI simple and accessible for everybody. And part of our mission at Berrijam is to sort of address that gap and make sure everybody is participating in the benefits of it. So for first things first, despite all the noise, all the complexity, I always like to frame us and ground us in terms of what are the kind of different ways AI can be used. And when you look at the kind of impact and solutions, the type of things you can do with AI, broadly, they sit into these four categories. The first one is, of course, finding things. We're all familiar with using Google search, right? Search engine's been around for a while. We can use it to find things, and there are all types of search engines, not just text. There's also image-based searches, so you can search for products, you can search for images that look like it, and so on. That's finding things. And that's driven by AI. So you're already using AI techniques behind the scenes. The second category is making things. This is where things like ChatGPT and generative AI seems to fit in. You've got Bard, you've got large language models from Meta called Llama, Midjourney, and so forth. This is where AI is used to imagine and create things that could be useful, right? Arts, music, and I'll talk about a bit of this. And that's really been getting a lot of attention over the last year, right? So when sadly, there's a lot of noise and confusion about what is AI. And by default, people tend to think that ChatGPT is the only AI out there, but it represents a small slither of capabilities. It's not just the capabilities out there that we can look at. Now, generative AI is fantastic for lots of different things, but it has a challenge because it has the risk of hallucinating and making poor judgments or recommendations. We've all encountered and seen stories of where ChatGPT-like solutions have hallucinated and imagined things and gotten people in trouble. At Berrijam, we think that there are other two types of AI capabilities that are really revolutionary and going to have a massive potential. The first one really is about finding connections. Now, AI is really good at sifting through large volumes of data, large numbers of variables to find the things that really matter, right? So you can imagine going through hundreds or thousands of variables or properties about certain condition, a certain patient or device, and find the things, the top 5 things, the top 10 things that really matter. Humans are not very good at this. And this is where AI can be really, really revolutionary. It can impact, surface the things that really have an impact and just help you focus on the things that matter versus everything. The second thing is, once you can find connections in those factors, then you can harness those relationships to make predictions about the future. Think about making predictions if a particular machine will break down, or if a customer will leave or churn, or what product or offer should we recommend, how many units I should order to make sure I've got enough in my inventory. These are the kind of things that AI can have tangible, practical, supporting decision-making capabilities that are really underrepresented. Let's talk a little bit about generative AI first. I mentioned generative AI, which is all the buzz and excitement, really is focused around creating new content. Text, images, music, audio, video, any synthetic data, it can do amazing things. Like you can give it a prompt and it can imagine an artwork from a creator in a new style and new modality that probably did not exist back in 1831. Like they weren't 3D visualizations back in 1831, but you can reimagine it using tools with a simple prompt. So generative AI has a lot of potential benefits and applications in imagining, creating content, parsing through a lot of text, summarizing it. But it's actually not very good at making decisions. It's actually very, very terrible when it comes to smart decision making. So when you're looking at data that is outdated, inconsistent, hallucinations, there are all sorts of issues. And if you attended my talk, or if you haven't, you can go back and watch it on generative AI. There's a huge range of problems and challenges that you've got to be mindful for and how you use generative AI capabilities. So generative AI has its place, but it is not the all end all solution for all applications of AI, right? Now, we believe that the important decisions where you don't want to hallucinate the decisions or the bottom line for a business to make those decisions require something more tangible and grounded in supporting statistics. So we believe finding connections and make predictions is really, really important for business organizations to make those calls, make those smarter decisions as we go. Now, as you can see, it is not a trivial potential either. You're looking at 11 to about $18 trillion impact on global economy by the same estimate when you compare to only about 15 to 40% incremental for generative AI, right? So the potential of this is massive. These tools are being used right now by the Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 50 companies, more than the rest of the world's enterprises and small and medium enterprises. We use them, we built them. I've been building them and offering it for lots of different organizations. So why is everybody not using these already? Right? We know it has huge potential. What's getting in the way? And so what's getting in the way is actually the tools to enable this are misaligned with the talent that exists at the organizations, right? So the ability to find connections and make predictions really cater to those specialized levels of skills and talent and training, whether you're coding it yourself in Python or you understand enough about the mechanics of the results to be able to interpret it. That means that of the majority of the people who work in industry as an organization, only a small fraction really can harness those tools that exist right now. So you're talking about data scientists, you're talking about software engineers, you're talking about AI researchers, right? Because there are often programming libraries or require extensive training. You sometimes need a degree in computer science just to get very specialized training in machine learning and AI. And while while I'm a huge champion of AI and data science, and I encourage everyone to go learn Python and learn data science, in practical reality, that's just not feasible. Right? People have their own priorities, their own day job, right? You can't expect a doctor who's trying to treat patients and find better ways to treat them to go and do a 2-year master's degree in data science before they can harness and use it. They've got their own priorities to use, right? And so what we thought at Berrijam, one of the challenges is how do we make the same tools available for people who understand their specific domain, they understand the applications and implications of using it rightly or wrongly, but don't necessarily know how to code, right? And so we sort of saw that there is an overlap where you look at business analyst like capabilities, right? So if you're a business analyst in an organization, and this is sort of generic representation of a range of roles and titles and skill set. Basically, these are people who can put an Excel file together. They understand how to communicate, how to network and influence. They understand how to translate business contexts into the problems. They understand their domain. They can work with, tell the story around the data and convince others and influence. Those are fantastic skills and necessary skills for AI to actually be adopted and used in organizations. And in typically large organizations, you have a team which is a blend of not just these skill set, but also technical skill set like data scientists who code, build machine learning models, interpret them, automate those things, deploy them, host these services, working with all sorts of different techniques. So there's a range of things that can sort of play a role when it comes to getting these done. I see. Do we have some questions in chat? No? All right. Wonderful. So given that, we decided to start our focus with those people who can work with Excel, but now empower them. And I'm going to show you a very, very practical way to how this works. So let's take an example. This is an example of a data set around, around airline customer satisfaction. Right, so we're looking at about 25 columns. 24 of them are attributes about passengers' journey through, travel experiences, what type of travel it was, their age, the part of loyalty program, and really, at the end is a column which measures satisfaction. It's basically a survey result from each of the passengers, yes or no. So there are 24 factors. 103,000 records in this particular data set. It's pretty big. In our general experience, we found anything with a few hundred to 1,000 tends to work just as well. And the goal here is to understand what are the factors that are indicative if a passenger is going to have a good experience or a bad experience. Right? Very simple problem. And so the experience within our application is very, very straightforward. You drag and drop the data file, and you upload it into our cloud-based software called Berrijam. And what it does as you upload it, it's basically running an analysis to figure out the quality and the health of that data. You're trying to see, is this data set suitable for exploration? Are the factors and the data set columns decently organized? And if they're not, we'll give you that feedback. The system will give you that feedback. Actually, these columns are messy. You need to clean them up. Or actually your data set is actually not very good, you shouldn't explore it. And that's really valuable when you're trying to set up a problem and make sure that the data that you've been collecting as part of an organization is actually useful. You might be paying lots of money collecting and finding some very expensive data, but if it's actually really purely curated and maintained, then obviously you need to know that as early as possible. And then you simply select the column that you want to predict and then hit go. That's it. That's the amount of energy you have to do and spend on seeing on using this sort of AI to find patterns and make predictions. And then Berrijam's AI goes away, takes anywhere from a few minutes to a couple of hours, depending on the size of the data, to look for insights that are important, inherent in that data set. right? Now I'll show you some of the things that what it looks like in a bit. But basically, a Berrijam AI automates the data preparation, the cleaning, the standardization, the testing and evaluation, the training of hundreds of models, and then analyzing the results and presenting them in a way that is very easy for humans to understand, right? For people to understand who don't know technical data science and ML sort of skill set. And this is really, really important to empower those who understand the domain and the business to make these smarter, better decisions, right? So when you combine those insights with the domain expertise of the person, one of three things tend to happen. The first one is either you discover something new or interesting that inspires new ideas or explorations, or you confirm the experience or instincts about a particular thing, right? But now you've got data and evidence to support it. Or you get clarity about the limits of the data and the factors for a particular problem so that you can go back and revise your data strategy, right? So each of these things are very, very useful. And I'm going to show you some of the examples, the insights that are discovered through our platform. So let's look at the online boarding experience on the airline industry one, right? So one of the key takeaway was that online boarding experiences actually impacts the airline customer satisfaction, right? So what does that gives you is if you're part of that airline organizer or airline looking to improve the experience of your passengers, you can zero in on the factors that matter rather than waste your time exploring all the different possible hypotheses. So in this particular scenario, the customers that were more satisfied of their sort of travel, the size of that population is around 27%, and the satisfaction rate is in the high 90s, right? It's a 95% satisfaction rate, and the key criteria or factors are the online booking experience was really good. The type of business travel, the in-flight entertainment experience was really good. And the customer type was they're already part of a loyalty program. So this tells you what are good attributes of the conditions in which the passengers were going to have a great time. In contrast, if the online booking experience was terrible, they had a tough time making the booking, they were not traveling for business, it was a personal travel, then the likelihood that they would actually have a good experience is actually really, really big, right? And when you compare it with personal travel versus business travel, there you can start seeing the numbers and a good comparison over there, right? So you can see the satisfaction rates drop significantly. So if I am interested in making sure my brand does well, I'm interested in making sure my customers are having a good experience, I would use this to zero in and look at, well, how can I improve the online boarding experience? How can I help the customers feel like they're having a great time? Make sense? I'm going to talk about another case study. This is on innovation and strategy. So the same platform can be used to find patterns and relationships that can inform a company's or a government's strategy. What sets different regions in Australia apart based on their innovation, right? So again, very, very useful for decision making, tactical, actionable. All of it comes from the insights that we can generate, right? Let me show you another one. This is on medical one. This is where the data was for a patient that was admitted to ICU with heart conditions or heart attack. And we were looking at the factors that lead to prediction of mortality. And so when we ran the analysis, we found automatically, Berrijam AI found that one variable could increase the risk of mortality by 60%, which is a very, very huge thing. So rather than running 50 different factors or tests, you focus on the 5 factors or 5 tests when a patient is coming in to assess their risk of mortality, their death. And so you can not only save lives for patients, but you can also reduce the cost that goes with admitting and triaging every single patient that comes into the hospital, right? The impact and potential is massive. You could do the same with reducing failures of machines, right? You can look at the sensor readings coming from machines and look at what conditions, whether it's torque, whether it's rotational speed or air temperature or process temperature, there's a likelihood of machine failure goes high. Because if you're a production manager, if you're managing your factory's production output and you've got to hit those goals, the last thing you want is an unexpected machine failure, which brings the entire production line to a halt. So using Berrijam and using historical data, you can then find the patterns that could not only predict individual machines' likelihood of failing, so you can proactively prioritize preventive maintenance, but also put in alarms and sensors, which says, hey, look, if the temperature of this machine is going to above a certain amount, I'm going to set off an alarm that slows down the production so we don't bring the entire production down, and bring in the team to start addressing those things, right? Very, very actionable. Similarly, you can look at this customer churn, which is a very, very common sort of a problem when you're building a lasting relationship with different customers. This is a data set from a telco. And what we found was in this particular company's data set, the plan, some customers were on different types of plans. One of the plans they were on or services they subscribed to was their fiber optics internet service. And those customers on that services had an 85% higher risk of leaving compared to those people not on that service. So what that tells you is there's something fishy about the experience of the customers on fiber optics plans, right? So you can zero in and then explore and discover the right combination of things that could actually address that. Either it's a product issue, either it's a service experience issue. Is it something else that is being missed? When you are an organization where you're exploring hundreds of different variables, this is a really fantastic tool to narrow that focus down. Let me give you one more example. This is on home loan approvals, right? So, using the home loan approval data, we ran it through Berrijam and we sort of looked at different things. One of the interesting things we found in this particular data set, there was a slight gender bias towards whether the home loan was going to get approved or not. Now, from a reputation perspective, from a compliance perspective, from a legal perspective, that's a huge risk. That you want to monitor your existing process and say, are my teams making the right decisions, or is there an inherent bias in the way we're approving loans that has a risk that opens up for litigation? Now, these are just some of the various examples that are obviously corporate-driven, organization-driven, but you could very much do it for fun. Like I looked at the AFL Brownlow votes criteria, and we looked at the criteria back in 2012 versus 2021. They're looking at the players that were awarded a Brownlow point. For those who are not familiar and joining us from outside of Australia, Brownlow medals are like the MVP, most valuable player sort of awards that are won. And you can see over that 9-year sort of period, we see a bit of a shift. We see that the number of disposals, which is what midfielders do with they get a ball and then punch it forward or kick it forward, that requirement has gone up, right? So it moved from about 30.5 disposals to 31.29 disposals, and the requirement for goals or conditions has gone down. So your frontline players who are scoring 4 goals or more used to get the Brownlow points, but now 3 goals and less you'll still get the Brownlow points, but there is a higher requirement for disposals. So interesting fact, which sort of corroborates one of the challenges that AFL community has been talking about, how midfielders tend to be the Brownlow Award winners because they seem to get all the ball and time with the ball and get more attention. And so things like this could help design different experiences for different people, right? You can come up with new rules or better criteria to validate who gets the points or how the points should be awarded. Right? Now, at this point, I've gone through a couple of studies, which are more than a few studies, which are interesting, and you'll say, okay, what's the business impact of it or criteria impact of it? Well, here's one we did with Michigan Medicine. Dr. Tapper and this team does analysis on how to improve patient outcomes, right? So how do we reduce the readmission rates of patients? And they published this analysis in leading journals on how to do it, and this is work that is well known, and they published it around giving rifaximin to certain patients under certain conditions can dramatically lower the rate of readmission, in fact by 40%. This is very, very useful. The only difference was Dr. Taba's team took about a month to do, whereas Berrijam did it automatically without a human in the loop to run through the analysis and present the findings in a matter of half a day. That's a 60x speed up. And so a dramatic speed up that can help people explore new ideas, a new concept much faster. And even go after ideas that right now would never get approved. There was someone I was speaking to who used to work for Uber and say, look, I waited 3 to 4 months just to get one analyst data scientist assigned so I could explore this idea. Imagine having to wait that long, or rather not having to wait that long anymore, because you can try it out yourself via Berrijam, and then say, hey, look, there is something. Let's go deeper and run the analysis deeper. Right? It's a really good surface tool. In fact, DeepQ, which is a hedge fund trader, we basically pitched the models that Berrijam produces against their really experienced data scientists, and we got the similar results. Similar, in fact, but the benefit was it was completely automatic. We were able to explore hundreds of models, and what this means is that rather than having a very, very senior data scientist who understands both the domain and machine learning and programming, now you can get someone who's junior and still early on in their career to be more productive. They don't have to keep tapping the senior data scientists and let them and disrupt them. Those junior data analysts can be empowered to get the insights and share those insights and make smarter decisions faster. If you think about it, a typical salary for a data scientist, for a senior data scientist, is anywhere from 250 to 300K per year, versus a junior analyst who's just joined from school or college would pay 100K a year, 110K. So that's an immediate ROI of 200K per analyst per year, not to mention the benefits of making better decisions faster. Because you make smarter trading decisions, you maximize profitability for your organizations, and you can see a bigger turnaround. So what I've went through were a bunch of different examples and case studies of how Berrijam's interface AI can help you narrow down and focus on the things that matter. It empowers people to make smarter decisions faster by helping them find connections. And then once you found those connections, making predictions. You can generate predictions to rank order things. You can understand the relationships. You can narrow down the scope of those problems. So at this point, I'm going to pause and open the floor for discussion. If anyone's interested, we can show you the experience of the application itself. But the key is, if you're interested and want to try out Berrijam for yourself, go to our website, berrijam.com, drop us a note through our early access program request, and we'll get you started and see what you can do with your data, your domain, your creative ideas. Make sense? All right. Sue, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm doing well.
Are we still on?
Yeah, we've got some folks. We've got Nishant, Roy, JT, and Yuan. Folks, feel free to come off mute.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Nishant.
Yeah, Avi, thank you so much. Look, I was very impressed with a lot of, real-time case studies which you brought, on the board. Definitely, because, you guys, did get my attention, and I'm part of the AI cohort at my work. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually, one of the, leads. So definitely, it is going to be useful. One thing I was wondering, there's a lot of apprehension about AI, right? And, the way you have categorized the applications of AI, to find connections, that's really good, because not a lot of people know that. How do you, the clients would either want everything, I want everything. That's the general mindset, right? Mm-hmm. How would you crystallize, it may not be a 2-minute talk, but how do you generally, like in insurance, they have a fact finding. How do you fact find that what they really need?
That's a great question, Nishant. And look, I used to run consulting at Teradata, and this was the first thing we had to do, was help the Fortune 500 organizations define their priorities of business impact first. what are they really interested in? What do they need to achieve? So if you think about it, every business out there has really two main levers they need to drive in order to survive, in order to compete, in order to succeed. The first is increase revenue, and the second is reduce operating costs, right? Because if you don't reduce your costs and they're growing, then you won't have profits to pay salaries. And if you don't have revenue coming in, you have no business, right? At the end of the day. So every business projected, and then of course there are others as well in terms of social impact. What are the climate impact goals, or what are the policy goals? Those are just as important as well, because they have a long-term impact on both the cost and the revenue side of it. So we typically start with those objectives and get the customer to narrow down and list the type of things that they want to achieve. And I can show you a long list of things how different organizations and have used AI to solve different problems, from customer experience, from revenue reducing cost. And there's a list I can bring up, 22 different examples across different industries and sectors. So if you're interested, send me a note and we can go through that. That can help us a lot, help crystallize the objectives. Once those objectives are crystallized and there is a value that people realize that is important, then you work backwards from it to say, okay, if my objective is making sure that planes arrive on time, well, what are the factors that are important in planes arriving on time? So we do a brainstorming session, which, okay, the aircraft's type might have a bearing, the weather might have a bearing, the pilot experience might have a bearing, how loaded or how many passengers are flying on that plane might have a bearing. So we do a brainstorm around different factors, and then once you've got that, then we put something together. You've got my email, just drop me a note and let's look for a time. Sounds good?
Thanks again.
Thanks, mate. See you later.